Thank you so much. Wow. Whew. Thank you. An honor, an absolute honor to be here today, talking about a topic that is near and dear to my heart. As Cheryl may remember, in 2010, when I ran for the board of directors, I was asked one of those questions from the stage was, Roberta, how do we keep Toastmasters relevant? My answer, as a former professor of communication, was know your audience, know what we want, know where to find us, how to promote to us, know your audience. So I thank big time District Director Jean Cassidy for sharing my enthusiasm for this topic of generational collaboration, generational differences, and of course, our current program quality director for scheduling the panel during LACE. Now, in order to grow our clubs and realize generational collaboration, we first need to better understand generational differences. The golden rule for every speaker in today's audience, and I know around the world, is know your audience. And I think we need to know our generations a little bit better. First, though, before we get started, and to Jean and to especially to immediate past District Director Kathy Hughes, a shout out to President's Distinguished Club Irvine Toastmasters with 30 members, new members last year. Distinguished Club Pacific Life Toastmasters, 20 new members last year. Costa Mesa Communicators, 28 new members last year. Bill, it looks like we have competition in Founders District. Bill and I, our two clubs up in 52, Renaissance Speakers and Warner Center Toastmasters, we compete. And I'm sorry to say that Renaissance Speakers lost last year to Warner Center, but more about that a little bit later. Now, to discuss the generational differences today, generational collaboration panel reflects three generations of Toastmasters. Bill Anderson, who is currently Vice President of Membership for President's Distinguished Club, Warner Center, our competition, Toastmasters in District 52. In addition, in 2022-23, he was a president, or he is a President's Distinguished Director, Division Director. In his daily life, he is Vice President, Research and Strategic Analysis for the Independent Film and TV Alliance. He holds an MBA from UCLA Anderson School of Business. What excites me most about Bill being on the panel, last year he brought in 20 new members from across all generations, and just last night, or the night before, 3 more people joined, and we all want to know his secret. Speaking second today on the panel is Christopher Wilson, representing Gen X, 1965 to 1980, 44 to 59 years old. Chris is a distinguished leader and professional. This past year was District 52 Division Director. Again, another President's Distinguished Division Director. Congrats to both Bill and Christopher. As director, he developed a mastery series, plus he recently, and you'll see in his background, launched the Team 18 Plus Toastmasters Club to empower young adults. Our third speaker, representing Gen Y, or the millennial generation, 1981 to 1996, 28 to 43 years old. She is the immediate past District 52 Director, reaching Distinguished District status. Congratulations to Serena. And it's the first time in 8 years, so we're all very proud of Serena and her team. In her Toastmasters life, she's held every district role in the past 8 years, 7 years. She's helped to build 8 new clubs this year and three clubs in the last month. We want to know her secrets as well. Serena is very well versed in social media and marketing trends. In her daily life, she has spent the last 13 years in sales, graduated magna cum laude from UCLA, plus holds an associate degree in business. Now, in order for our panel, now you know who is on our panel. Now, for our panel to better know you, I'm going to go back to being the gallery view for a moment. We want to know who's in our audience. Now, of course, you don't have to tell us how old you are. But if I ask if you're a generation, just raise your hand. If not, I'm going to assume you're multi-generational. But this is for our panel speakers to know you better. So who's a baby boomer like me in this audience? Got a few of us. Okay. How about Gen X or 1965 to 1980? Oh, I'm multi-generational. Thank you, Christopher, for raising your hand, Akar. And Simone, of course. Excellent. Then our millennials, 1981 to 1996. I know Serena. And oh, Cynthia, well done. Great. Oh, and we're all good. We have a few millennials. Now, there's one generation we're not going to be talking about from a representative point of view today, and that's Gen Z, 1997 to 2012. They're between the ages 11 and 26, and of course, we capture them between the ages of 18 and 26. Now, each of our panelists are going to speak about that generation, or at least talk for a moment about it, because when they promote outside, they also promote to that generation. And as all of you know, Gen X is the fully adept using all smart devices, social media, and digital tools. Now, our purpose today is to better understand generational differences. We want to know who they are. We want to know what they want from Toastmasters. How do we keep them engaged once they say yes and join the club? And how do we best promote to each generation? Where do they go for information and how best to deliver that promotion? It has truly changed since I was a brand new Toastmaster back in 1972 or 4. Don't tell anybody. That was when I was 2 years old. Anyway, now today we're not going to share any PowerPoints. Why? Or handouts, and I'm going to answer the why. That's because as a baby boomer, I like face-to-face communication, whether it's online or in person. Also because I'm was a professor of communication, and our research showed that PowerPoints can often get in the way of the speaker and their message. Now, there's no handouts today in addition because you don't need them. You've got Google, and more importantly for me, I have Chat GPT. And all you have to do is ask the AI, whatever platform you use, is what's the best way? What's the best way to reach the generation and leadership? Or how do they feel about PowerPoint? Or how do they feel about public speaking? Boy, there's so much information up there. You and your clubs are going to be able to find that so valuable. Now, the format for the rest of this time until 11:30 is that I've asked each of my panel members to speak for 5 minutes-ish on their generation and answer the questions I just posed. Who are they? What do they want from a Toastmasters club, and how do we best promote to them? Then I'm going to open it up to Q&A. Please put your questions and answers, not answers, but your questions in the chat and direct it to a particular panel member, or I will direct them. And then at the end, I'm going to ask each panel member to do a short wrap up. So if you are ready, is everybody ready? Ready? Oh, well, some of us are still having coffee. Okay, so we're up. Ready? Here we go. Let's begin with our baby boomer, Please welcome distinguished Toastmaster Bill Anderson. Bill, take it away.
Thank you very much, Roberta. When Roberta asked me to do this, one of the things she brought up, she said, well, how old are you? And of course, I gave her my stock answer was, well, I'm old enough that my feet reach the floor when I sit down. But that's always, as a baby boomer now, it's getting to be something that is kind of sensitive, because okay, I'll tell you what I am. I'm 73 years old. I can't believe it. I'm trying to find the manager. I'm trying to say, what happened here? How did this happen? I'm part of the generation that's on the cutting edge of everything. And I know that for Gen Y and everybody else says, well, we're on the cutting edge. But I think baby boomers have been on the cutting edge, because I can remember the old world. And I remember the old world before the pill, before the Beatles, before Woodstock, before the Kennedy assassination, before personal computers. I remember it all, and the world has changed a lot, and baby boomers have had to deal with that change coming year after year after year. And we're resilient. I think one of the things you have to know about baby boomers is that we are someone that will get the job done and is always focused on the job. And that seems to be sometimes a point of contention with some of the other generations who want to keep a quality of life, who want to get things kind of smoothed out. Baby boomers want to do the job. And so we focus on that because we, as baby boomers, were part of a generation that sprung up after the Second World War, and there were many of us, and we got used to, competing with each other, and we got used to being focused on what we need to do, and we got used to having the World War II generation, and I use that term. I don't know if anybody knows that my parents were World War II generation people. They went through the Depression, they went through the Second World War, and they imparted values to us as baby boomers that I still live. I like to, I'm somewhat of a hoarder. Don't tell anybody that, because a hoarder is kind of a negative thing. But when I have something, I say, do I need to, am I going to be able to use it someplace in the future? Do I need to throw it away? So baby boomers like to have things that are practical. And that's one of the things about Toastmasters, I think, that most baby boomers like the most, because it is a practical application of learning. And it's a practical application that you as the individual can exercise to improve yourself. And that's one of the other things about baby boomers. We're self-sufficient. And Toastmasters is a self-sufficient endeavor that you decide what path you're going to run. You decide when you're going to do your speeches and your projects, and Toastmasters allows us to do that. And the other thing is that, so we talked about Warner Center Toastmasters, yes, and I have to correct Roberta, we had 22 new members last year. And I will admit that our goal for Warner Center Toastmasters, and I'm stating this publicly, our goal is we're at 45 now members. Our goal is to get to 60 members by the end of this Toastmaster year. And that's one of the things that Toastmasters helps us focus, is to set goals. And that's what baby boomers love to do. We love to set goals. We love to achieve things. So how do you reach baby boomers? Well, it's pretty easy. We love email. We love getting notices. We love Facebook. We love calls. How do we get new members? Well, I think it's a very personalized process, because when I get a inquiry within 48 hours, and I try to do it less than that, I will send an email to that person inviting them to the next Warner Center Toastmaster meeting with the details of how to get to the meeting, where the meeting is at, where to park, and all that sort of thing. And then I will, if I have time, and I admit I don't always do this, but I try to give them a telephone call the week before the meeting to remind them and to invite them to come down. I mean, to get members, well, one of the things I always think of is what Maya Angelou said. She said that people will forget what you do, people forget what you say, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And that's what we try to do with Warner Center Toastmasters and our guests. We try to make them feel special, make them feel what it's like to be part of an organized Toastmaster club whose meetings run on time and are absolutely interesting. So baby boomers, I think, are made for Toastmasters and when it gets right down to it, because we love the ribbons. We have at our meetings, we have the best speaker, the best table topics, and the best evaluator, and give out ribbons every time. Baby boomers love that recognition. And we also love authority. I mean, what I mean by that is equating authority with experience. And when I hear somebody's a DTM, I immediately think that they are an authority person in terms of knowing about Toastmasters. So that's us. We're here. We love change. We love Toastmasters, and we love the whole process of learning. Roberta, can I give it back to you?
Wow, thank you so much, Bill. Me as a baby boomer, I was like, whoa, Bill, you kind of nailed that. I love those goals, love those ribbons, love the competition, but not all generations do. Bill, one more question for you before I pass this on to Christopher. Bill, does your club meet in person or online or hybrid?
We are totally in person. We love the in-person experience because, and why did I get 3 members this last meeting? Well, I'll tell you, one of the reasons we got 3 members is because that meeting was exciting. There was energy in that room and you could feel it. And everybody really loved that feeling. It brings camaraderie to the session. And who doesn't want to be part of a group that you immediately feel camaraderie? And so that's what we try and generate. So.
Absolutely. And Bill, I understand from your club that you have all generations, maybe not Gen Z yet, but all generations as members.
Yes. And I think that, you know, while in some ways, this session, I think, is somewhat wrong in the sense that there's a commonality amongst all people. It doesn't matter what generation you are. People like to feel that they're part of something, and they like to feel the camaraderie of being together. So I'm a little bit hesitant to
I know
in the current situation here right now. I really think that's really true, is that we're all human beings. We all put our pants on the same way and walk to school and walk to work and do everything else. So
absolutely, Bill. You and I had this discussion prior to panel discussion, but I still wanted you on the panel because we still need to talk about, are there any generational differences? First, we need to know our audience, and then what is it that they expect from our clubs once they say yes, and that community, something that I think goes across all generations. So thank you again, Bill. We're going to now turn to the next generation. We're going to turn to Christopher. Christopher, you're here representing Gen X, that 19, I always have to remember the 1965 to 1980 year olds, 1980, born in those years. So go ahead and take it away, Christopher. Tell us about your generation. Tell us also a little bit about starting Team 18 Plus.
Thank you, Roberta. Distinguished Toastmasters, it's a pleasure to be here today to talk with you about something that I am actually going through, and that's learning how do we connect with those outside of Toastmasters and letting them know the wonderful value that Toastmasters offers. Well, the first thing I would say is, who in here has a hero? Raise your hand. I know one of my great heroes was my grandfather. My grandfather taught me a very valuable lesson when I was young. He was an avid fisherman. He wasn't not just a fisherman. He caught fish. A lot of people just fish, but he caught them. And one day I was with him, and Some other gentlemen came and they didn't have such a good day. They didn't have any fish, but we had a lot of fish. My grandfather knew where to catch them and how to catch them. And they would always ask him, where did you go? What hole did you fish in? What bait did you use? And he would always say the same thing. He would look at them and smile and he would say, you just got to hold your mouth right. Fellow Toastmasters, finding people to get in Toastmasters is just like that. It's kind of a mystery, but if you're around the right people and you say the right things, they will come, just like I did. I was invited to come to Toastmasters for 25, 30 years, believe it or not. Many times I turned it down. It was timing for me. But when I got in, I was offered an opportunity. And Generation X needs that opportunity. We are hungry for it. I'll get into the things in a minute and we'll talk about those. But first, let me tell you a little bit about when I got in. When I got in, I went to one meeting on Zoom. The next meeting, I showed up in person. By the way, I agreed to sign up on Zoom that first meeting. I went to the meeting in person the second time, and they were talking about voting for officers. I stepped up because someone in this room, Lance Webster, he said, you can be the president of the club. And I said, wow, I'll take that opportunity. Generation Xers need that opportunity. And we'll talk about why in just a second. I stepped up and I'm glad I did. I would have never done that if Lance hadn't encouraged me and said, yes, you can do it. And then he helped me, but he moved to the side and he let me take the reins and he kept mentoring me and he still mentors me to this day along the way. And that's an important thing for us all to remember. There's three things that Generation Xers that I believe that we need to look at. The first thing is their work-life balance. We all have professional jobs at this age, and we all need to balance those things. If not, we get out of balance, and then we get grumpy, and we get upset, and we can't have enough Starbucks. But the thing is, what is the benefit of that? The benefits of Toastmasters provide skills to help manage that. And by taking on an executive role like I did, it taught me that I could manage not only my life better, but I could help manage a team. The structure of the educational process teaches us how to do that. The support and the mentors of the club does that. And the camaraderie of visiting other clubs with leaders, just like everyone here today, helps us to go along the way. And what are my supporting facts for that? Well, juggling a professional and personal responsibilities is not easy. Flexibility in meetings and schedules was something that challenged me from the very beginning, but I was open and honest and I told everybody. I even told Serena, our district director, I said, I am not good with calendaring, but I'm here to learn how to do that better. See, I wanted to improve what I was doing in my professional life, in my martial art business. I wanted to have a better calendaring system. I wanted to practice the things in Toastmasters that would help me in my professional life. And that's where I was. I had reached a certain level, master level in martial arts several years ago, but my growth in my studio hadn't grown much. Toastmasters was going to help me do that. And I started along the way. The next thing is career advancement. Now, the benefit that Toastmasters offer, it enhances our public speaking skills, which I'm doing here today. It's the first time I've ever spoken in front of a big panel like this. I did 2 practice sessions to get ready for this. I'm hoping I do a good job and I impress myself. I'm not here to impress anybody else, which is something I've learned from martial arts. But it does help us improve our speaking. It improves our leadership capabilities for our career growth. And that's what we're looking for. A lot of us have reached that certain level in whatever career we're at, and we're looking to super exceed that. We're looking to add legs to our legacy, which I'll talk about in a little bit, and that's how the Team 18 came about. Now, supporting facts for this are Generation Xers seek career advancement opportunities and structured programs for skill development. Now, why is Toastmasters good? Because they have 100 years to build a structured development process for leaders, 100 years. And they're refining that constantly over and over and over at the national level, all the way down to the club level. And I appreciate what Bill said, because If we have moments of truth down, and everybody knows hopefully what that is, if we have that down, then our clubs are going to be vibrant and they're going to be exciting and they're going to offer those special opportunities to Generation Xers like me. When we come knocking at the door, you're going to give us those opportunities that we so need. The third thing is networking opportunities. Again, we're networking today. We network in all of our clubs. The executive roles that I've taken on, area director and then division director, offered me huge advantages to do that networking that I so needed. Again, it was helping me expand my professional and personal networks. My personal networks have grown tremendously in Toastmasters. I've added multiple friends. I can't even count how many I've added all around the world because of Toastmasters, and that helps support me in my business and in my life. And other things that support this are our valuing and meaningful connections that we have, a diverse membership that's offered in Toastmasters, and the environment that is created because of these meetings that we go to. I would say this, just like my grandfather's fishing secret, engaging Generation Xers, and I'll talk about Generation Z in a little bit, it requires the right approach at the right time. And by understanding this unique set of skills that we have, we can build a strong and inclusive community by getting more Generation Xers to come on board to learn what Toastmasters has to offer them. Back to you, panel moderator, Roberta.
Thank you so much, Christopher. Wow. Woo. Well done. I love your father's, your dad's going fishing. I grew up with a father who took me fishing every weekend as well. Don't have quite that story, but I certainly have stories from him. Thank you, Christopher. Now, let me just make sure the Team 18 Plus, that is an online club, correct?
It is. I know I didn't mention much about that. I'll be glad to if you want me to mention it. Team 18 was a concept that we came up with. I say we because it takes an army to get a club started, I found out. But I was encouraged by Serena. Serena really encouraged me. And she offered me the opportunity by saying, you could launch a club, certainly. And she did it. And I said, you know what? I didn't realize I could do it. And in May, about the second week of May, not too long ago, I sent a press release into the district with my vision of starting the Team 18 Club. Yes, it is online. It meets once a week on Thursdays at 6. Everybody's invited. But we got that club launch on June 30th. We send the paperwork in with the support of everybody who stepped up and helped. Thank you.
Well done, Christopher. Congratulations. That's the first that I know of that type of club. And I really, really appreciate what you're doing and empowering young adults. So thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation. I learned a lot. I was taking notes. I mean, Bill and I already kind of know because we are the same generation, but Gen X, I'm always trying to learn more about that. And thank you for mentioning Serena, because our immediate past district director is up next. Serena, you had an amazing team with Christopher and Bill, but I want to know about you as a millennial. You and I met when I believe you were 18-ish. And you have grown into an amazing leader and an amazing communicator. So talk to us about millennials. What do you want? And where do we find you?
Good morning, everybody. Yes, millennial is technically a title I have, though when asked to define myself back in community college, I pretty much summed it up in 3 topics: Starbucks, Steve Jobs, and well, I'm sure there's something important about identity in there somewhere. My entire classroom thought it was almost a joke. The irony of a white from a average household growing up in Pasadena, California, talking about culture was not really something that fit. But I realized that truly I was connected with a different kind of group. When I finally recognized that my fitting was more into a generational group than a cultural group, it somehow relaxed me a little bit and made me feel more at home. It's not something a lot of people think about, and I, granted, do not think about it every day, but it does periodically come up. One of the biggest things, well, several of the major things that my generation saw, things like Hurricane Katrina. We actually started waking up a little bit about the other parts of the world. O.J. Simpson trial. Oh my gosh, the law, it's a thing. This is something that happens. These major events in history, I think, started. We didn't have Woodstock, we didn't have Kennedy, but we had our own moments that made us realize what our values were. Gay marriage actually started coming up in, I think, 1993. I was literally a baby, and it took an entire generation to see that through. So these moments of becoming awake and aware of our environment and others, I think, and I can't really take the credit for it, but I think are why Gen Z are more concerned about others than perhaps other generations. So I think this idea of learning who you are, having that in touch with identity mixed with a little bit of need for self-confidence boost comes up with a potion that's similar to millennials. Of course, we can't forget that social media also rose up in 2022, the infamous year that LinkedIn came out. Most people think Facebook was first, but it wasn't. LinkedIn came out first. That's how job searches were changed forever. Then we have Facebook, followed by Instagram.
Twitter.
I remember the first time I used Instagram, and the irony is my older sibling, who was way more knowledgeable in this field, I will never forget the first couple pictures I took. The very first one was a blurry plane, and I swear someone 2 weeks ago liked it. Why are they liking a post from years ago? I don't get it. It's weird. People can look back into the depths of your past online. It's never going to go away. We forget this sometimes, and it's something we have to be a little bit more conscious of. But learning these skills, I was able to adapt them in a myriad of ways. One of the things that I like to mention is the value and benefits of social media connecting across boundaries, cultures, generations, and more. The reason why I say this is because when I was district director, I was determined to do a handful of things. But the number one thing was I wanted more communication. And in order to start, I decided definitively, against myriads of protests from various generations and experiential backgrounds, people who have claimed to have done it before, but didn't want me to do it again, do not post an advertisement on any platform, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Well, they're all the same anyway. Not really. They actually have different generations that are attracted to them. For example, one of the big things that millennials come into Toastmasters for is networking. But now, if you go to a typical networking event, which I apologize to Christopher and Bill, but are typically filled with the prior generations, they want me to connect with them on Facebook. Facebook is not for millennials. Facebook is for my parents. It's for other people to form pages. No, thank you. I'd rather look at an Instagram reel, a video in 30 to 60 seconds that's going to catch my attention and show me something I want in this much time. I want to feel educated, but I don't want people to tag me. No, thank you. In fact, what I'd really rather do is search via hashtags. I said that slowly. I will say it again. Hashtag. It is one word, and it could be anywhere you want, with a number sign. You remember those? I know they're still on your phone, even though you hardly use them. But that number sign with a word is a hashtag. And us millennials love to use them. I know TikTok is something we started getting into, but I have to give it to Gen Z because they really took that off. That has been a huge development. I will lastly like to say that I'm very proud that last year we had somebody join the board of directors for Toastmasters International that just so happens to be at least closer to my generation. And I think it's something we don't always think about. the idea of being able to communicate across generations, the idea of being able to share ideas in ways that they want to digest the information. You want to attract younger people, you want to have a long-term 13-year Toastmaster like myself. A lot of it starts with who they know. And a lot of it secondarily starts with how you're connecting with them. Back to you, Roberta.
Wow, thank you so much, Serena. You know, the chat really lit up. Cynthia's comments, Cheryl's comments. Whoa, thank you all. And again, thank you, Cynthia, Cheryl, and everyone who are putting comments in the chat. Now, Serena, before I start the additional questions, you have an incredible background behind you. As Professional Women is a brand new club in District 52. And the last time I attended, it seemed like that entire population, all of our 20 plus members, are of the younger generation. Is that true? And what do you think really has been motivating this group? Or tell us a little bit about the group.
Sure. Professional Women Toastmasters was inspired by another group that actually is in District 1, and Julie Brody, a past district director, and I believe even district governor, because she did it twice, is in that group. That group, I had this idea when I heard of it. Why not? Why not give women something just for themselves? How many of us, and this is going to, again, be sexist, so I apologize, and this is going to be recorded for history, but oh well. How many of us women have done things for others, not gotten something in return? A lot of us have relationships. Some of us get married. Plenty of us have children. And you want to have something for you time, me time to invest in ourselves. I think that's something also millennials were struggling with. And I felt like there was a need to have a safe space for women to talk about issues that affect us in a way that is socially acceptable, wouldn't cause too many waves. So we did start Professional Women Toastmasters. And while, again, it may not be politically correct, we do have a male that has joined the group. So we are not exclusive, but we do typically promote this idea and this concept of giving women a safe space to share ideas that they struggle with. I remember when I was a young girl, back in the days before I had a real job, and I was babysitting for these two lovely twins. And I would afterwards talk to the mom, who was about a baby boomer. And she would tell me about time after time getting passed up for promotion, having a man take her job, or even the fact that she's still, after 20 years in the business of something to do with entertainment, I apologize. She would tell me she still had these loans. Whereas her male counterparts with equal education, equal experience, were getting paid less. But it gets worse. It's year after year. I would hear these stories from people, and I would think, even though it's against the law, even though there's no way to prove it, there's unfortunately still a little bit of a gap. And giving us that safe space is the least that we could do as Toastmasters. I thought, why not start the group? And we are getting a younger interest in it than some other groups, because they're recognizing that they can come. One of the biggest fears, I think, is not just fear of public speaking, but it's fear of looking stupid. They don't want to say something that makes them look bad. They want their first impression to be perfect, which I think some women struggle with. We want to look perfect. We want to have the perfect lipstick. Heck, I even put this on just because I felt a little intimidated. That's how society has set us up. So why not give us a space where we can let our hair down, literally and figuratively, and have it be essentially a chit chat, more of a relaxed environment where they still get to grow their personal skills. And where I'm very excited to say, as the incoming president, soon to be officially installed the next week or so, we have a majority of the board that are brand new, as I call baby Toastmasters, and they're excited to take a leap of faith and learn a little bit more about what leadership growth they have in store. Back to you, Roberta.
Thank you so much, Serena. Thank you also to Cheryl in the chat. Cheryl, I try to be humble with that.
Yeah,
Yes.
I know. But I'm a
I'm
boomer
always on
too. I'm a boomer
I
too,
know.
and recognition is important. So there you go.
And I remember when my Lydia Boyd, past international director Lydia Boyd, and I started the club with Pat Ellison. We knew
That's
that we
right.
had to have one man as a mascot. So we went out and found the perfect man to be a mascot, and he became a member. After that, I think they've gotten up to 2 men as mascots. So it was great fun, but that club now, I believe, has been going, wow, probably at least 25 plus years. Julie
Over
Brody
25.
was one of,
Mhm.
right. And Julie Brody, our past international director, was one of our first members. I think she was a charter member and went on to do great things in a couple of different districts. So we love her for it. And thank you so much, Serena, for your information. And I love that background for the Professional Women Toastmasters. It's bright, it's beautiful. Unfortunately, as a baby boomer, I always say, I don't like back boobs. And maybe it's not as a baby boomer because Bill has one. I like nothing or blur because I don't want, and Serena and I have gone through that before, but well done, Serena, on your presentation. Now, let's go on. Is there a question? Is there a question for our audience? And while you're thinking of questions, I'm going to ask the audience, our panel members, this question. Because this was the question that I put into Chat GPT, into an AI platform that you might. I want, how do the generations view leadership? So starting with Bill, how do baby boomers view the role of leadership, the club president in the club?
Well, baby boomers really like to have leadership. They like the authority that is incumbent in the position because it makes things a lot cleaner, a lot more easy to understand. And also a good leader will set the precedents for the club and for whatever endeavor that they're doing. And while baby boomers are individuals, we like to be on the same page. We like to be part of a group. I mean, I'm a good example. I could work at home part of the time, but I choose to come into Westwood, where our office is, every day, drive 25 miles, because I like the experience of being in the office and being with other people and working together. So.
Excellent, excellent. So what was interesting is when I put it into chat, it says us baby boomers value, and I went, oh yeah, teamwork, collaboration, and personal relationships. And we're all into consensus building for that generation. Christopher, same question to you. How does your generation view leadership?
Thank you, moderator Roberta, for that question. I recently gave a speech, and part of the speech talked about leadership. And I believe that for my generation, this phrase sums it up. We believe that leadership is born in moments of preparation. When we were younger, we wanted to have the opportunity to do something, but we didn't want anybody to help us. Get away from me. I got it. Let me mess up. The sad thing is, when we messed up, we weren't willing to admit it. I'll tell another quick story that sums up where we are right now. There was a doctor and he was in the room. Now, this doctor was supposed to be the smartest doctor in the world. He had the most wisdom of any doctor ever. And he had a panel of younger doctors around him and senior doctors that were judging him. And they wanted to find out if he was truly the wisest doctor ever. So they said, we'll give you a few tests. And they said, can you look at the patient and can you improve his hip? His hip is hurting. So the doctor looked at the patient and he fixed his hip, no problem. They did the same thing with various parts of the patient. He kept fixing him. And pretty soon they looked at the doctor and they were stumped. They couldn't get him. And they said, well, we think that we want you to improve the patient's wisdom. And the doctor simply laid his instruments on the table. He quietly walked around and sat in the chair comfortably to be there for a while and started reading the paper. My point is this: we are now willing to get guidance from the wise people, the wise ones. We're willing to accept that because we realize in our time of life, we need that. And we need the wise people. And that's why I'm here today. My presence in this panel really explains exactly that. And I think hopefully that sums that up. Any questions about that?
All right, Christopher, thank you for that answer. Because when I went into chat and asked that question, what was interesting, they said that the Generation X, your generation, appreciates leaders who lead by example and are willing to mentor and empower others. And you certainly are on this panel today because you and I had this discussion, and that's what you said that you wanted as you were part of it and the experience. So thank you so much for that answer. I love that story. You're a wonderful storyteller, Christopher. Serena, over to you. Go ahead and answer that question and maybe even answer it as part of the millennial generation and Gen Z. If you may, if you can. I'm sure you can. I'm not worried about that.
You might be able
I know
to.
you can.
The number one word I think millennials like with leadership is innovation. They don't want to do things the way they've been done. They want to try something new and different. And personally, whenever somebody tells me that I can't do something, I'm just all the more determined to do it, which is why, and I don't know if I wrapped the story up, but I did proceed to put ads out, and those ads we did allowed us to charter clubs in a third of the time. It took us 9 months, no, 10 months, 11 months, 10 and a half, 11 months to charter 5 clubs. I can't even do the math. I need a calculator. 11 months, 5 clubs. And that last month and a half, we chartered 3. Innovation is key. From the Gen Z perspective, I think they're more focused on societal issues. I think, again, I'd like to claim it started with us. Probably everyone likes to claim that. All the good things from the next generation started with us. But Gen Z, I think, focuses more on societal impact. They're focusing on leaders in industries that care or don't care. And because I believe I looked it up, Forbes said millennials had 92 million in the world. If that's remotely accurate, and that's more than the 77 million that are baby boomers, we actually, as millennials and then Gen Z, have more of an impact on buying power. So if we don't buy into literally what you're selling us, it could eventually die out. So I think focusing on caring about the individual person and the environmental impact, and of course the rise of DEI, I think is Gen Z's focus, and leadership that includes others of a variety of different cultures and backgrounds are people that they will listen to.
Yeah, wow. Very well said, Serena. Thank you. When I looked at the millennials for leadership, you hit it right on the nose. Leadership styles are collaborative, transparent, and empathetic. Leadership can be, they like leadership, their leaders to adapt to rapid changes, leverage technology effectively, innovation, and of course, to provide opportunities for professional development and growth. So if we do that in our clubs, and I know you as the president of Professional Women Toastmasters will offer that. And Gen Z, their leadership styles are inclusive, agile, and able to navigate a rapidly changing world. They do understand all smart devices, social media, and collaboration. And it looks like all the generations have some form of collaboration or community, as Bill referenced early on. Now we have a few minutes before I go to our wrap up. I'm going to ask a question for a quicker answer. In our Toastmasters clubs, we'd have evaluators. And what I've been noticing is oftentimes there's a generational difference between putting an evaluator and a speaker together and what's being evaluated especially if we're all not on pathways, but we should all be on pathways, absolutely. So I'm going to start with Bill, because I did go up and ask how do the different generations view public speaking? So give us how do baby boomers view public speaking?
Well, we look at it as a skill that we as individuals want to develop because it makes us more effective to be part of the group. Okay, and also
Yeah.
it also makes us more effective in any competitive situation, because when your boss calls on you to give a summary of whatever, you want to be able to really articulate that and shine.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things about Toastmasters that I always emphasize basically to everybody, but also to baby boomers, is that this is an opportunity for you to increase your skill so that you at work can move ahead.
Excellent. That's exactly what I would say, Bill. Thank you so much. And when I put this into chat, it also said that we value face-to-face communication, would emphasize the importance of strong delivery, as you referenced, and storytelling in our presentation. But let's now move to the next generation. Christopher, answer that same question. How does your generation view public speaking? And any tips on evaluating, from your viewpoint, other generations?
Thank you, panel moderator Roberta, for that question. I want to change it slightly,
Okay.
but I want to try to make my point and answer your question. Maybe we can circle back. When I was younger, when I was in school, probably junior high or so, I started getting a popular magazine called Popular Science. Who read that? Popular Science was one and Popular Mechanics was the other. We were promised by the time we graduated high school in 1988, when I graduated, that we would have cars flying around. We wouldn't be on the roads anymore. And we don't have that. The difference between my generation and the prior generation, in my opinion, is the prior generation is more reluctant to use social media things, but we're craving them. We want them. We want the AI versions. We want the new things that are just coming out. If you guys haven't checked out what's happening with AI, please go do that. I was speaking with Wilbert Theodore recently about that, and he was telling me and showing me how AI is making a tremendous leap. That's what we were promised. We as Generation Xers crave that leadership, and hopefully that's coming across to you today from me. Now, I want to talk very quickly about how does that line up, and why do I want to talk about Generation Z, is because I think that a bridge is very important to think about. Don't try to cross the bridge before you get there, and don't burn it after you cross it. I feel like Generation Xers can be that bridge between the older generation and the newer generation, which is Generation Z. And there's a very important reason why, because the new generation, they are focused on skill development and they're socially responsible, right? They want to make the AI stuff, but they want to be socially responsible. My generation, we don't care, but we do want those cool tools and we want to be able to use them. And the technical integration thing is always something that comes up in the clubs. I think that finding those bridges that we can put in the executive teams and put it into action, finding those bridges between the wise generation that we need the support from, we need the guidance from, because the Generation Zs might not be able to connect with that older generation, but the Generation Xers, yes, we crave leadership. We want to do it in a constructive way. We're not so much about the environmental way, but we want to do it in a way that can connect those two generations. We crave that.
Oh,
to you.
All right. I love your craving. Thank you. Thank you so much, Christopher. And again, when I took a look at it, it seems like Generation X tends to appreciate concise and engaging presentations that get to the point quickly. So we need to realize how each of us as different generations view public speaking. So when we do our evaluations, we're on point with that particular audience. Serena, I'm going to have you speak next. Lance, I'm going to have you speak for your quick comment after Serena, because I forgot your generation. Serena, please take it away. Answer that question. How do millennials like public speaking?
one of the key parts of a good speech for millennials is authenticity, being yourself, which starts with knowing yourself and, of course, knowing your audience. I also think interaction is important. Like I said, 30, 60-second videos, our brains are not able to handle much. It's not that we're not smart. We're just not going to give you our attention for very long if we don't like what we're hearing or seeing. And I think having visuals and PowerPoints, using tech, throwing that into the mix is another way of getting our interest. In terms of feedback and evaluation, we're afraid of getting feedback, at least in a general sense, because we don't want to look stupid. We don't want to make mistakes in public. It's something of
Yeah.
why we're coming to Toastmasters in the first place, so that we can be professional. There's definitely a gap between the prior generation and ours in terms of professionalism. We don't show up in suits and dresses and high heels, but we still want to show up in a professional manner that we get accepted by prior generations. So that applies to our evaluations, because we understand most of the time we're getting evaluated outside our generation. And those things have been commented on. I've seen it more often than not. I really like that tie. I really like, you're presentable today. Great. What about myself? It's good to be authentic in receiving evaluations and having that interactiveness as well with the evaluation and evaluator. But I think it's best to, if you can, gently touch on until they're used to it, the aspects that need improvement, and making them feel part of the group and not a different kind of person, even though they're in a different generation. Back to you.
All right. All right, Serena, well said. Absolutely well said. Actually, well said, Bill, Christopher, and Serena. For millennials, it was interesting because they prefer speakers who use technology effectively, engage the audience through storytelling and visual aids, and address relevant social interests in their presentations. So again, well said, Serena. Now, Lance, I know I skipped silent generation, and that's the generation that you represent. A quick comment, if you would, and then I'm going to go to our wrap up in just 2 or 3 minutes.
Thank you, Roberta. This will take about a minute, but all presentations today have been excellent, but we need to be careful about pigeonholing people in any generation. All generations, all platforms, X, Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube, Meetup, Facebook, all notwithstanding, the best way to attract guests is still personal, one-on-one, in-person interaction and personal endorsement. If every club member brings one guest and a third of those guests join during the course of a year, that's going to be 7 or 8 new members in a typical 20-person club. 2 DCP points, by the way. So as leaders, we need to make sure that all our members are trained in how to speak about Toastmasters in the language of each generation's needs.
Now that's good.
Specifically, what are their specific needs at the moment, regardless of generation? Where are people at in their lives at the moment? Do they need to get past fears? Do they need the skills? Do they need the opportunity to practice? Do they need the opportunity to create? Or basically, do they just want friendship and camaraderie? So in a larger context, what kind of people are attracted to Toastmasters type experience? It takes one conversation and relationship to discover these things. Back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Lance, for that comment. Very, very relevant today. And in particularly relevant when we're finding a new member. And when we don't, I have been at Toastmaster clubs where they say, you want to be a member? But they forget to ask that most important question. What are you looking for? What's important to you? And get in a dialogue. Because once you're in a dialogue, they're more liable and likely to reach for you. Now, I may be wrong, but let me go to Bill. Comment on that, Bill?
Absolutely. One of the things that we do at Wonder Center is that we have a guest master for every meeting, somebody that is committed to being at the meeting before it starts and to help greet any guests that come to the meeting. I try to, as vice president of membership, I try and be there too to greet guests. And we greet them and talk to them individually about why they're there and about how Toastmasters can help them. And also we explain the meeting. We tell them what they're going to see in the meeting. We tell them that, well, we're going to do table topics and you might be called upon to do table topics. And you can do
Yeah.
that if you want to, but you can say no. And we prepare the guest for the meeting so they kind of understand what's going on. We try to sit them next to a member that can fill them in as things are happening. And I do that with the guests that sit near me. I'll tell them, well, they said this member's a DTM. Well, a DTM is a distinguished toast, things like that, kind of translate things
Yeah.
so that it's not a foreign language to them, but they understand what's going on. So
Excellent.
again, it comes down to Maya Angelou and how do you make them feel? And we make them feel welcome.
Yeah, and that's all generations. I know Warner Centers does, as all clubs attempt to do that. Christopher, do you have another way of interacting with your guests prior to the meeting or during the meeting that gets you the information you need?
Yes, we do at Team 18 and other clubs too, but specifically Team 18, what we're doing is using a slideshow presentation throughout the meeting. And what we did, we changed names. We still put evaluator in small print, but also over to the side, we put team coach or coaches.
Yay.
So we're integrating the theme of our club into that to fill that gap and let people understand that we're bringing them energy. And there's a phrase that goes, I know everybody knows this, but it's always well said, is that people don't care what you know until they know you care. And it's simply letting people know we care enough about them to make it unique and special and create that special environment, very much like Bill said, but just in our special way. Back to you.
Oh, excellent. Thank you so much, Christopher. I think it was 32 years ago, I co-started Renaissance Speakers. And I changed, of course, I got in trouble, but I didn't care. I changed the evaluator's name to Coach, General Club Coach, and all of our evaluators were coaches, just because of the way it sounded and the way we wanted to be communicated with. But enough about coaching versus evaluating. I love the word coach, so thank you very much, Christopher. Serena, professional women's Toastmaster, how are you? How are you and the guests interacting with each other and finding out more? And thank you, room moderator.
One of the things for this club is it's very supportive and it's very focused on interaction. And because of that, I actually borrowed, wink, wink, something from Team 18. I'm going to show it because you can't talk about it. I'm just going to screen share it really quick. It's an image where you interact with your audience by asking them how they feel today. And they throw a number in the chat because they're so interactive. Every single person was putting stuff in the chat. And this is how we started our meeting at the last meeting as a way to get people energized. This does go across generations because I actually have seen this in classes. I've seen this in workshops, and I love this idea. We ask people questions and they respond, and we invite people, instead of doing a private, tell us one or two things for feedback in the chat to Joe Smith or Susan Smith, I should say. Instead of that, we are having them share what they appreciate about the speaker into the chat, and they're just naturally doing it. It is blowing up throughout the entire meeting. Wow, great job. You inspired me. You said this great thing. And people are also doing emojis. They're doing some of my favorite ones are, if I can do it, when you go to React and they have it has this new thing where it lights up the whole screen. So you hit an emoji and the whole thing goes off. We're doing these. We're doing all the virtual applause. I love it. To me, I feel like there's a value in doing the extra little bit, especially since we're virtual. We have to find new ways to connect with our audience.
All right. Thank you, Serena. I missed that last meeting. I'm not going to miss the next meeting. That is much fun. I hate to say which one of those sharks I felt like last week. Anyway. All right. let's go to our wrap up, and then I have an announcement I'm going to have Christopher make. Bill, let's start with you. As a baby boomer, any final words of wisdom for our audience who are trying to build membership in their clubs, who are building membership in their clubs?
Well, I always come back to what I've been saying before. It's person to person. It's how you make them feel. And when you make them feel important, I mean, remember as a guest, you're walking into an environment and with people you've never seen before. And many guests don't really understand what Toastmasters is all about. No, not all of them, but some of them. And to make them feel welcome, to make them feel part of the group is the goal. Not only it helps you to get them as members possibly, but it helps them to feel that they belong, that this was a good decision to come to this meeting, regardless of whether they join or not, but it was a good decision and they'll remember that. And maybe they didn't join now, but they may come back in a month or 2 months and things have changed and they're ready to make that decision.
All right, thank you so much, Bill, and appreciate all your comments on the panel today. Christopher, over to you for any last wrap up, summary, recap.
Thank you, Roberta. I think you wanted me to sum up by talking about the international convention that's coming up. Is that correct?
No, I think I'm going to wait on that for another moment. But
Okay.
just for your presentation,
Wonderful.
let's just say, what would you like to say about your generation as wrap up?
Very good. What I would like to say about my Generation X is that we appreciate Toastmasters. We appreciate all the wisdom and knowledge that everyone here is offering us. We just ask that you find us, reach out more, be creative. We have the tools within our Toastmaster clubs to figure that out. I don't think that's necessarily the problem. We shouldn't look at it as a roadblock. I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but why do we climb mountains anyway? A lot of people would say we climb the mountain to see from the top, or maybe to get stronger. There's all different ways, but ultimately we climb the mountain so we can climb bigger mountains. And that's what Generation Xers are looking for. We're just simply looking for that opportunity. Please be passionate enough within your clubs, get your members passionate enough to find ways to find us. Back to you, Roberta.
All right. Woo! Thank you so much, Christopher. And thank you so much for your comments throughout the entire panel discussion. And I'll be calling on you in a moment to talk about the International Convention. Serena, over to you. Last minute, your last final comments, wrap up.
From a millennial standpoint, I think it's about creating your own magic, embracing the future, and ultimately being willing to fail. As one very wise Toastmaster told me, I'm not going to repeat that quote, but we learn best in moments of enjoyment, as Ralph Smedley said, but I sometimes think maybe we learn best in moments of failure. Those are the things that have the lessons, and if we plant them, they will come to fruition. Millennials are all about thinking about the future and what we can be. If we can be part of a group, then we will be even better and greater than if we are feeling alone by ourselves. So I think embracing the technology, finding us through Instagram with hashtags is the way to get the next younger generation involved in Toastmasters.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Serena. Again, congratulations on being a distinguished district. Look forward, and thank you just for all your comments today. And speaking about the future, now it's back to you, Christopher, to talk about what's in store for us as far as generational information at Toastmasters International Convention in August here in Anaheim. Christopher, take it away.
Thank you, Roberta, again. We're in store for a treat. 2 years ago, I connected with a club over in the Philippines, Metro Manila Toastmasters at the time. They were featured on the Toastmasters International website. And I mention that because that's how I actually found a new world in Toastmasters. I reached out and started researching, And I started going to that club. I would get up at 3 a.m. in the morning to get prepared for it. Well, one of those girls that started a little over 2 years ago is now an international speaker, and she's doing wonderful. She gained that notoriety through Toastmasters. She was invited to come and speak at the Anaheim convention. She will be there. And as icing on the cake, she is still in touch with me. She came to Team 18 this past Thursday and spoke to us.
Excellent.
She's networking with us and giving back. I did drop the link for her bio, Roberta, in the chat if you want to share that with everybody. But she will
Thank
be
you.
there. We'll be there to meet her. Back to you.
Thank you, Christopher. And Christopher, please share that link with everyone who's here in our audience today. And I know I'm going to be in her session. I cannot wait, or I'll be online watching it. I think that is so important in order to answer the question I was asked back in 2010. How do we keep Toastmasters relevant? Thank you again to my three panelists. Also, Lance, thank you so much for your comment. Thank you to all of the chat comments. I so appreciated them all. And thank you to our audience today. You're on the right track in making Toastmasters relevant to all generations. And as I like to say at the close of any presentation or panel I do, from past international president Helen Blanchard, when she said, if you get out of Toastmasters, everything you can get out of Toastmasters, you will never get out of Toastmasters. And that is my wish for all generations.